All right, so here's the scene I'm working with. I'm gonna stay fairly true to the scene, but I mostly like these light colored rocks in the foreground, and then obviously the reflections on the water. So here's the scene Ariah's gonna be working from. And so you're gonna get some of the transparency in the water as well in the foreground, like right in here.
Sure gonna try. I have that dark panel, so I'm gonna have to take a different approach to get that effect, but I'm looking forward to it.
So you're working on a 14 by 18?
Yep.
You're painting over an old painting?
Yep, failed nocturne. So this was the only panel I had that was sort of ready. I have a bunch drying.
All right, and I'm working on a 16 by 20 inch panel today. I'm sketching in burnt sienna using a worn out number 4 synthetic flat. I'm starting with the trees in the distance, which create sort of a dark pattern. I want to make sure that I don't paint these trees too large. Oftentimes, because the trees look so large in real life, I'll just paint them too big. I want to feature the foreground here where there's some light colored rocks in this area, and then there's a shrub right here. So it looks like you used burnt sienna there for your sketch, or burnt sienna with white, maybe?
Burnt sienna with a little bit of alizarin in it. I wasn't quite sure what color to use, what color would show up.
Actually, it really shows up well. That's cool.
We'll see.
All right, the shadow portion of these trees are the darkest part of the composition, and so they're a key feature. So I want to make sure I get these established early. And I am squinting at the scene to reduce it to simple shapes as usual. And there's some larger trees over on the side here. And I'm gonna leave a few sky holes in these trees, but I'm gonna run them right off the top. For the light portion of the trees, I've got a mixture of ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow medium, and a bit of alizarin crimson to kind of tone down the green. For the grass on the hills, I just added some titanium white to the mix and a bit of alizarin crimson. And I'm using a number 6 natural bristle flat. I think I will run the mountain off the top and have a little bit of sky over here. That's a kind of a bright green. Use phthalo in this mix and you can tell. That's all right though. I'm going to just go with it because I will be adjusting the colors. Just trying to establish the distant shoreline here. All right, while I've got the green out, I'm going to block in this shrub that's in the water here. And there's another one here, kind of smaller. All right, so I'm gonna put in the dark portion of this shrub here. And there's a bit of reflection on the water as well. And then there's some dark portions for this shrub here and this one too. The water on the distant shoreline is kind of a bluish color, but the reflected mountains and trees are more of a green, which makes sense. And the pattern of the reflection is sort of, obviously it mimics the mountain, but there's some sky reflected in the water as well, but I'm going to go with this shape right here. Something like that. Yeah, there we go. And maybe down a little bit lower here. And with reflections, I try to use vertical strokes, at least to start with. Is this Wild West over here?
This is wild.
Oh, wow. Actually, I really like it. You have mixed feelings?
My brain is in overdrive right now.
But, you know, like we were talking about, it's kind of helpful in a way that the painting's already dark. All the darks are established. You've got to kind of think in reverse in a way, right?
Exactly. I spend so much time normally starting a painting getting all the darks established that to go to try to get them everything lighter is really weird.
Yeah.
But,
so are you actually going lightest light and then, or do you even have a method today? You're just like, just going for it. So in the foreground, there are a bunch of rocks, and I'm going to just quickly sketch this in and leave some areas of light. And I'm generalizing, like I know the pattern that I'm looking for with this particular color. And but I'm not going to paint each individual rock. So this area here is shallow water with the light tops of the rocks popping through. And the water kind of comes over in this direction like this. So there's a shape like that. I think that's it. More water over here. All right, so for the sky reflection, got a mixture of ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and titanium white. And this portion of the river is, like I said, reflecting the sky. And I'm not sure that I've got the values right here, but that's okay. It's a good starting point. I'm just focusing on big shapes, just trying to get the whole panel covered as quickly as possible. And this is some blue in here as well. Just kind of focusing on the abstract patterns. Something like that. All right, so putting in the distant shoreline with a warm gray mixture. And then there's more sand on this shore right here. It kind of goes out this way. And then actually a bit of it reflected in the water right along there. And maybe a bit out there too. I'm using the same blue mixture that I used for the sky reflections for the sky. But I did lighten it up just a little bit. And I'm paying attention to the value of the sky. The sky is darker than this distant shoreline. So it's a fairly saturated blue. And then there's a bit of sky over here as well. Something like that. All right, so right along this shoreline, there's some sort of blue-greenish grass or reeds. I'm not even sure what they are. It doesn't matter. Putting those in. I like the different colors and values you have on that shoreline. That's really cool.
I feel like I'm dulling everything out a little bit too much, so I want to try to keep it a little bit more saturated from here on out.
That's something I've noticed when painting on a dark colored panel. It's like you have to exaggerate the saturation.
Yeah, I was wondering how this was going to affect how my value in color was going to be affected, and you're right, it makes it much easier to dull down the colors.
And I think what it is actually it makes the colors you're mixing seem brighter and more saturated because it's against a dark, say, gray background.
Yep.
And then you get it inside, you're like, wow, it looks so vibrant, and it's like dull. That's I think what's going on.
Yeah, I do not want that to happen.
No.
What do we got here?
Well, I'm gonna try to block in these rocks here, and going with a warm color to start with, even though the rocks do look kind of bluish in color, but I think by having a warm under painting, I think that'll help. Actually, I'm tempted to leave some of these areas blank for now, but
yeah, kind of to represent where the
where the rocks are. Maybe I'll mix some titanium white into it. Yeah, I think that'll work. And what I did was I scrubbed this area in really quickly and just left random spots as opposed to trying to paint the exact rocks that I was seeing. You know what I mean?
It gets too tedious. You got to save yourself some time.
Yeah, exactly. I don't actually want to break up this area too much. I don't like this line, so maybe I'll have the rocks come like that. Yeah.
You can see how important the shapes of the blocking are right now. It looks really good already. I
figure if I get the shapes in place as usual and the shapes are appealing, then hopefully the painting will work out.
Yeah, it already reads very well.
Oh, thank you. At this point, I'm going to need to turn my panel so that it's not in the direct light. But I want to show up close just how sketchy this thing is. It's very, very loose and sketchy, which I actually like, and I do want to keep a lot of that in the finished painting. All right, so at this point I'm proceeding with caution, just looking for the light portions on the trees, trying to reinforce those those areas of the trees because I don't have enough separation between the light and the shadow. Most of the time when I do a scrub in that I like, I'm tempted to stop and leave it, but I never do. And today's one of those days where I feel like I could just stop and live with the scrub in and see what I learned from that experience. So I'm gonna keep going, but I am gonna stop earlier maybe than I'm completely comfortable with. And at this point I'm using a number 6 natural bristle flat, and the strokes are becoming more loaded and deliberate at this point. I'm not thinning the paint anymore. With liquid, I'm just applying the paint, the thickness that it comes out of the tube. The early portion of the painting, I use liquid to thin the paint to apply it quickly. But usually when I'm doing the adjustments to the colors and values, I'll go with a thicker paint. I've decided to darken these distant mountains because they were drawing too much attention away from this area of the painting. So even though they are brighter in real life, I've decided to make that change for the composition or for the painting. So I originally painted the sky more of a cerulean color. I'm now going over with a mixture of titanium white and ultramarine blue. I'm feeling like having that purplish color in the sky actually will help the sky recede a bit. And then there's a little bit over here. On the hill below the trees, there are some dead branches that kind of have a purplish tone to them. So I'm going to add those in and see how I feel about it. I added a touch of burnt sienna because I'm seeing a bit of red in there as well. I think that's a little more accurate. And there's a few touches of it over here as well. All right, Ariah's all done. Beautiful color, thick paint as usual. You worked hard on this one, man.
Yeah, it was difficult for my brain. I do think that toning the canvas a little bit is really helpful. I just don't think this dark.
All right, well, here's what I finished up with. This painting took about 2.5 hours to complete. My main goal with this painting was to create a convincing shallow water effect in this area right here. The shallow water and the rocks are what attracted me to this scene. In the past, I would often simplify things like these rock shapes right here, but in this particular case, I decided to embrace these individual rocks, in particular leading out to the shrub here. Another thing I tried to do is create a convincing reflection in the water. And as I mentioned during the painting process, I like to use vertical strokes for the reflected objects and then keep the edges soft. I did include a little bit of sky in this area, but I'm contemplating removing that bit of sky. But other than that, I'm pretty pleased with the way this came out, and I'd like to experiment more with this sort of shallow water effect in the future. All right, well, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll put a link to Ariah's Instagram down below. Also, if you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's the Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.